On the last episode of Parametric Promethean, I showed you how I can draw lines and polycurves in Rhino and turn them straight into walls and rooms in Revit, and you can't because you don't have access to my custom components, and I haven't found a way to sell them to you. If you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, go back and watch that now.
I get it! Everything's made of glass!
Hey everyone, welcome back. It's been over a week now since I dropped the first video on this channel. Not a bad innings so far. We've had hundreds of views and thousands of reactions. I've had like 100 friend requests from people all over the world on LinkedIn. Yeah, friend requests. You're not actually my friends, you're just random strangers who work in the same industry. But let's see, maybe some of you can become my friends. Anyway, shout out to the guys at Automation that I used to work with as well. I would have expected a few more reactions from Populous, and I was a bit worried for a while that maybe I'd crossed a line somewhere and there was some sort of corporate directive from the headquarters in America and they were telling them all, no, don't like Mike's video, but turns out they were just busy. They don't actually go on LinkedIn very often, they've got actual work to do, so they don't want to just trawl through endless streams of people marketing their own bullshit in their suits. You notice I've changed the background. People didn't really like the black background thing, so I've just picked a blank wall in my house. So I don't actually have to use what's behind my desk at the screen. It's a laptop, I can move it. And I've been looking up what kind of things trend on the internet so we can get some more likes and subscribes. There's cats, there's cars, there's politics, there's pseudo-archaeology, there's product placement, and of course, porn. Now, I would never stoop so low to do something so disgusting and depraved and demoralizing to the human soul as product placement and advertising. And as for the other thing, well, you'll either be severely disappointed or relieved to know that I won't be doing that either. At least not on today's episode. However, I do have a cat. Everyone give it up for Tango the kitten!
Hey everyone!
So Tango here has very kindly agreed to host the show with me today.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. We discussed this yesterday. We made a deal and said I'd give you lots of extra treats and you would help me out with my show.
Oh, I remember now, but no, changed my mind.
You can't just change your mind.
I'm busy.
What could you possibly be busy with? You're a cat. And you don't have to work or anything.
Says a guy with no job.
Man, that was low. But, you get to live in my house rent-free in one of the most expensive cities in the world. I give you food every day. I clean up your poo. And you won't help me out with something?
No, like I said, I got better things to do.
Like what?
Well, right now I'm grooming myself, but then after that, I'm going to have a little sleep. And then when I wake up, I'm going to stretch. And then I'm going to do zoomies up and down the house. And then I'm going to stare out the window for no reason. And then I'm going to chase the toy mousey. Yeah, I got a busy day planned, Mike. I don't have time.
Well, guess I'm on my own then.
Yeah, go away now.
Well, if you're going to be rude, fine then. No food for you today.
Oh.
See ya.
Ah!
Last time we got up to about here where we had our rooms and our walls. There's something not quite right about this building. It's flawless. No, I don't mean it's perfect. I mean it doesn't have any flaws. All the walls and the rooms are just going to fall down. Luckily Rhino doesn't have to conform to the laws of physics. But let's put a flaw in anyway. That's why I created the Create Flaws custom component. As most of you probably already know, in Revit, we typically draw flaws using this tool. But just in case there's anyone who's a total Revit noob watching, I'll dumb it down for you. Go to the Architecture tab, click Flaw, drop down, Flaw, Architectural. Draw a rectangle with a magenta line, hit the green tick button, hey, we have a flaw. But sometimes Revit flaws are actually composed of multiple objects. See? It's one element, but it's got two different solids in it. And that's why converting from Grasshopper is not as straightforward as you might think of it if you just had one solid compared to one element. We could generate this in Grasshopper, but for the hell of it, let's just draw it manually with the Rhino out of the box tool. Just get this box, draw an extrusion, let's make it 200 millipedes. And we're going to need a ceiling as well, so we can just copy that upwards. Actually, that probably pissed off some of the Revit pedants out there. That's not a ceiling, that's just another floor on the next level. And just to illustrate a point, I'm going to grab this and going to make a couple more of them, just put them over here. Let's go to our gumball, and just so you know they're not the same one, we'll stretch them. Okay, we're going to bring these in as breps. Tango, I thought you said you weren't co-hosting. And we're going to be building a grasshopper tree structure. There's a few ways to do this, but I like to use this stumpy one over here. Flatten tree. And let's give it a panel so we can give it a number. Shrink that down. Let's add another panel so we can see the output. Let's set that one brep. Okay, bring that back. Now let's group that together. Make these line up pretty for all the people out there with OCD. Okay, let's make 3 copies of this one. And we're going to name them 1 and 2. Now this one we are going to set to be the one on top, and the other 2 are going to come here with a set multiple breps. We're going to get one of these squid thingies, and we're going to build a merge. For some reason it always adds an extra one, which is a bit annoying, but anyway. So now we can see that we have 3 branches to this tree. The first 2 just have 1, and the third one has 2. So now that we have our geometry sorted into a tree, it's time to use the Create Floor Blocks component. This takes in the geometry as a tree, and it takes in a boolean for whether it's exterior or interior. Now this is going to be useful later when we're going to do our environmental analytics, because an exterior floor would be something like the part of the slab that is on a balcony, which would form a shading, whereas the interior floor might be the thing we're actually trying to analyze the lighting or the thermal performance. That'll be in a future episode. Okay. Hit the group toggle, and here we go, we've got our floor blocks. Okay, so you can see that they're numbered. They're on external floors because we said they're exterior. And in the user strings, we've got some metrics like the volume and the perimeter and the area. The other stuff's blank for now because we haven't put it into Revit yet. And if we crack it open with a block edit, we can see that there is a poly surface on the solid layer, a planar brep, which will be for the analytical surface, and the curves, the border. Okay, now we're going to send them up to Revit with the same component we had in the last episode. I've made a few changes since then, so I'm now able to sort out what's a new wall or what's a modified wall or a failed wall, and the same for the floors and windows and doors. I think that'll be enough. That gives us the basic elements we need to make a building, at least for analytical purposes. We've also got a Revit ID mismatch. Now that's if you were referencing an element which had a valid ID but it's the wrong type of element. So let's say it said it was a floor in the Revit model and it was a wall in the Rhino model, then the script would get confused, so it's just an out for that. The new levels, that's if we generate any levels, and that relates to the level generation threshold, which I'll show you in a minute. Okay, so all we have to do, again, we just grab our blocks, set multiple blocks, group toggle. There they are in Revit. Now we can make changes in the Rhino model and we can run it again. So if we, for instance, want to make this block a bit bigger and we were to get the poly surface and stretch it out, and we have replaced existing on true, hit the group toggle to run, and there we go. Now this one's a lot bigger. There's other changes we can make too. So let's say, for example, this one we wanted to lift it a little bit higher, like the level had an offset, and we run it again to recompute. Let's go to this view, zoom in here, try and grab the level thingy, drag it across so you can see what I mean. Okay, this now has an offset, but what if this were a lot higher? This is where our level generation threshold comes in. So we've set it to 4,000. So if we lifted that up quite a lot, looks like at least 4,000 there, and we run again, see now it is up there. It has a height offset from level of 0, but it's on level 3. Level 3 did not exist in this Revit document until my script ran. And again, if we grab the level thingy over, then it's now sitting there. Okay, now you know what's next. Going back the other way. Okay, group toggle off. And selecting some graphic elements. Yeah, grab them all, why not? Finish. Hit the group toggle. So now it's overridden the geometry of the Rhino blocks with the geometry from the corresponding Revit elements. So we could actually do a whole Revit model this way, building all the levels from Rhino. So if we load up Grasshopper, I have here a model from another project. It's a funny shape because it's all being cut by a solar plane. So this was the one where we had the urban planning and it was able to generate the building shapes using solar planes to give you your maximum footprint that would not overshadow the nearby park. What we have is a block, and inside there are extrusions which are floor-to-floor massings, and the different colors represent different types of architectural program. Okay, so if we go to Grasshopper, I have yet another custom node here which extracts from this and creates breps. And if we just hide it, now we can see that the extrusion has a thickness and also has an offset for the exterior shell of the building. So if we made that really obvious, then our floor plates are going to be even smaller. So these are already in the tree format like we had before. So all we have to do now is set the group toggle, and again we have our floor blocks. Now we've got to convert them over to Revit. So rather than reconstruct it from scratch, let's just go the other file from before and copy and paste it in. And we grab all of these guys, we set multiple blocks, and we turn the group toggle on. Now our Revit model has all of those floor plates and all of those levels. And so here we are at the end of the episode. It It would have been good if I had a bit more feedback from people actually to the content rather than just to the intro. Some people that did reach out were wondering why I didn't just start in Revit in the first place. I've seen projects like that before when I was an architect. Put me down now, Mike! Sorry, I can't really multitask by holding a cat and talking coherently at the same time. Okay, so some people did ask, why even bother with Rhino? Why not just go straight to Revit? It's a good question. The problem is, Revit is not really a design software. Now I know that statement's going to piss people off, but I'm going to go with it anyway. Revit is a documentation software. Design and documentation are not the same thing. Design requires a lot more creative thinking. It requires a lot more flexibility. Documentation is about producing drawings and BIM models, and these things aren't the same thing. If you're like me and you went straight out of high school into studying architecture at university, then you probably never learned how to draw until you actually got to the workforce. At university, we mostly just used Rhino, and this was because we were designing, we were treating a building like a sculpture. We were manipulating in 3D, we were adding color and texture and rendering, and that was mostly what we did. Like 2D drawings were an afterthought that you kind of, did in Illustrator at the last minute. And I've seen all these people who back at uni were so full of creativity when they design things in Rhino. Once they get to the workforce, they're stuck drafting toilet details in Revit. And they've forgotten how to actually design. It's so sad. I want to get us back to Rhino. Rhino just gives you so much more freedom over geometry, and Grasshopper gives you a lot more freedom about how to structure your data. I mean, try inventing a custom object in Revit and manipulating it. Revit doesn't even have a class for what a building is. Rhino can be used to design anything at any scale, from a small piece of jewelry through to an entire city. Revit, on the other hand, is better used for making a BIM model to make drawings between, say, 1 to 100 and 1 to 10. For instance, if you're doing the master plan, you don't really need a full-on BIM model. And if you're doing details, then Revit is going to struggle with curvatures that are less than 0.8 millimeter. So people usually end up just referencing in their detailed drawings as CAD drawings anyway. With Revit, as the elements in the model get more and more tied together, it becomes increasingly difficult to make any change without completely fucking something else up. And you end up with shitloads of error warnings. Now you can try and automate this stuff with Dynamo, or you can build toolbar buttons. And I've done that for years before I started using Rhino inside. But you're still dealing with the same problems. It's just not a geometry manipulation tool. And too often I've also seen people who come from a Rhino background and don't have a Revit background use Rhino inside, and then they just, convert it over to generic models, send it off to Revit. Yep, job done. And the Revit people are going, oh, I've just got this nihilistic, meaningless geometric mush here. This isn't a BIM model. This isn't proper elements. So the whole point of building these modules is to find a way that we can model up design options in just enough detail to start getting some feedback from analysis. Now, whether that's, looking at the yield of a floor plate, or we're doing sustainability analytics, or we're doing topological analysis. We don't need a full-on BIM model for that, but we do need a bit more detail than a massing model. What I'm trying to avoid here is a situation where, say, an architect were to make a bad decision early on, and then later on they call a sustainability consultant as a box-ticking exercise. And the solution the sustainability consultant would like to do can't really be implemented, because making the fundamental changes would just be so nightmarishly difficult that it just gets lumped in the too hard basket, like climate change itself.
On the next episode of Parametric Promethean, we talk about sustainability and how the AEC industry can pretend to do something to avoid the inevitable collapse of civilization, despite the inherent design flaws in late-stage capitalism that make our planet totally fucked.
What are you doing on my chair?
It's my chair now.
I don't need my chair to sit down to do my work.
Yeah, Mike, I'm taking over the show. You could still do the work, but I'll tell you what to do because you're my slave.